I'm fuming. So we're going to have a good show today, I think.
These
Before we start, I do apologise for it. It's been a month. We said we were going to do one like the following week or something. Well, my wife got COVID, and then my daughter got COVID. So like the house was kind of difficult for the last like 3 weeks or so. But yeah, we're all good. We're all good now.
Yeah, good. COVID pretty much buggered our schedule, but we're back now.
For the second
And
time.
yeah, I know. Oh well, at least both our households have now got it. So, just now we just need to remember the difference between a work event and a party. But yeah, so we're here to talk about. So we've got. It's been a lot that's happened. There's some NFL. There's a lot of football, specifically with Everton Football Club.
I,
Watford have again changed manager. Would you
how,
believe it?
how many times have I messaged you over the past week saying I want to do a podcast? I want to do a podcast. I want to do it because I've been so like worked up by the whole Everton thing. It's like, come on, let's do one now, now, and it's like we couldn't marry up a schedule for a week, so like it's happening. So like all this stuff that's in here is about to come out of here.
Yeah, I think I've just kind of like maybe on purpose kind of like held you on the
Let's
leash,
let it stew a little bit. Let it build up.
just waiting to see if it was going to be Vitor Pereira or Frank Lampard because I knew both of them were going to get a reaction. I just didn't know what exactly. So, there is also which is the first topic that we're going to talk about, which is quite serious. Which obviously we can't really afford to ignore. And that's obviously the current stuff happening today with Mason Greenwood. And then there's some NFL to talk about. We will have some other stuff, but I will let Arn kind of take the
Yeah,
lead on the first story.
we'll get to the fun stuff later, but obviously we were going to record last night and we couldn't, so it's kind of bumped into today, and we've ended up getting landed with the Mason Greenwood story, which, to be honest, I could have done without covering, but it's happened, so we kind of have to talk about it. So Mason Greenwood, this morning it came out that he'd been accused by I don't know if it's his former girlfriend. I don't think it's his current girlfriend. I think they might have split up. But his former girlfriend, Harriet Robson, and he's been accused of physical and sexual assault. And she's released sort of pictures of the after effects of that, and an audio clip of him sort of demanding sex and like being verbally abusive and threatening her. Now, I think my first instinct was there is absolutely no woman out there who goes around taping what her boyfriend is saying to her unless he's got a history of previous. Shit
Yeah.
doesn't happen. Like my wife doesn't go around recording what I'm saying. I do that myself on the YouTube, but like she
Hmm.
doesn't like come around and like have a phone like hanging around the back of me taping what I'm saying, because I'm not I don't sit there verbally abusing her. So for me, that is an immediate like red flag against Greenwood if he's trying to defend himself for this, is that he must have done something before, otherwise why is she taping him? It doesn't make
Yeah.
any logical sense to do it unless he's done it before. Sorry, Eddie, go.
No, it's a very it's a very tricky situation, and Man United have said they are aware of the images and allegations. They're not going to make any comment, and obviously they do not condone any kind of violence of any
Yeah.
kind. It's I've seen a lot of I've seen people tweeting that referring to his age and that he's young, and that they're bringing up the background, and that they're saying, well, maybe he was from an abusive background, and that still doesn't condone
No,
any
it
of the
really
behavior
doesn't.
that
I mean, if
from
anything,
the evidence.
if you've had that abusive background, you should know what it's like to be abused, and you shouldn't be putting that on anyone else. And I know
Mm.
there's way more psychological depth to it than that. And I'm not an expert in the area. I'm not going to claim to be, but there's no excuse for it. There just isn't.
Mhm.
So if he has done this to the degree that it looks like he has done that, then his career's over. That's all there is to it. He's done.
Yeah, there's very little a chance of coming back from from this. And I know there are people who are going to bring up the word cancel culture and stuff like that, and I'm just it's if the evidence is there, it's clear. If it's to even a bigger extent than this, then yes, he should never play football again. Man United should release him from his contract, and he should go and seek help. And that's all I can really say about it. It's a terrible situation. It's absolutely awful, and my thoughts obviously go out to Harriet
Yeah, of
Robson's
course.
and obviously what's happened. But yeah, it's awful, absolutely awful. But yeah, we don't know what will happen with that. As I say, I don't think we'll probably cover this any more in detail than it should be.
No.
I'm sure in the link down below in the video we'll put some links out to kind of domestic abuse and stuff like that. And obviously awareness. But yeah, let's kind of talk about I mean your thoughts on it obviously in terms
Yeah.
of
Well,
you were
we
talking about
wanted to
money
kind
in
of
football.
we wanted to touch upon the root cause of it, which is even if, like we were saying about his background, maybe he was abused in his youth, but the root cause of football misbehavior, and there's a lot of it. This is not an isolated incident. It's just one that has come to the forefront because the victim has come forward and has put that in the public domain. There is a lot of issues going on in the background in football, and there have been for a while. And it used to be that football wasn't a game where you could earn so much money in 3 years that you could then just afford to retire and just do nothing for the rest of your life and you'd be fine. It used to be a game where you'd play until you're like 30, then your knees went and you go and open a pub. And the money that has come into football since the Premier League era started is so much more than any of these guys need over the course of their lives, that it's created problems away from the pitch. They're not taught anything. They're just given money and given this sense of entitlement that you can get here you go, here's all the money in the world, you go out there and go nuts. And some players ended up with massive gambling problems. I'm thinking of Keith Gillespie, who he just gambled away like his entire paycheck every week, and he was earning like £50,000 a week, and he was throwing that money away just because
Paul
they didn't know
Merson
what
as
they
well.
did.
Paul Merson as well. I'm sure he
had drink and drug problems as well as the gambling issues that he had, and there's no support network for these kids when they go into a football club. I mean, they kind of teach them how to do social media because social media has become a problem for players when they kind of hit the big time, and all of a sudden you're digging up things that they've tweeted out 3 years ago, which are just completely inappropriate for a professional footballer and a role model for little kids to be saying. But they're not really coaching them about the basics of life, which is the kind of thing that you just learn naturally through struggling through life. If you have a normal job, you kind of learn how to treat other people as equals because you are equal with them on a social footing. Whereas if you're a footballer, all of a sudden you're earning like 30-40 grand a week, and all your mates are on like £200 a week, and they're quite happy with that because it's a decent wage for a 17-year-old. And all of a sudden it's like wham, there's this massive disparity, and you're going to have people clinging on to you. You're going to have people just after you for your money, and there's no support network in place to make sure that things like this don't happen, because a lot of this is based on entitlement and a lack of respect that has come from just having too much money too quickly. If you're a millionaire by the time you're 18, like, you're just not going to care, are you? You're not going to care about what you do to other people because it's like, well, I'm just going to get more money. Like, just throw it around, and this is a problem.
It's again down to, as I say, when they come into football at that age, as I say, giving them enough support and around to kind of understand, the importance of what they kind of, what their job is, but also kind of like, what's expected of them.
Yeah, these players have social responsibilities, and it's been highlighted. I think Marcus Rashford has done an exceptional job of using his position as a professional footballer to influence government policy, which is, I mean, can you imagine that in like the 1980s or the early 90s, if a player was suddenly going like, I don't like the way that the government's treating school children, so I'm going to change that. It's unheard of. It's ridiculous. So, like, fair play to him. But then the flip side of it is this. And this is just completely unacceptable. It just can't happen.
It can't. And I mean, I know Marcus Rashford recently was brought up with an incident involving a picture with someone. I've not seen the story. I've just heard things, and he has taken ownership for that. And yeah, he is. He has been, seen as a champion for kind of the country at the moment against this government.
Yeah. And kids look up to these players. So, like, if they see that as the example, that's what the players are doing, it's going to lead to like a healthy like a base for them to have like a moral structure during their development. That's what young players have to lean in towards, because the alternative is this kind of yobbo culture that tends to capture a lot of the younger players. I'm thinking about Wayne Rooney and Paul Gascoigne and how they were led astray off the field, and that created problems for them on it. Now, a lot of the younger players today, they're in a better position than ever before to use their fame and their stardom as a jumping on point to elevate their approach to life, so that they can make genuine change. And there are players who do that, and fair play to them. But yeah.
It's a developing story at the moment. We will kind of imagine this may not be the last we'll talk about it, but again, it's not something we wanted to bring up. It's something that's kind of is there. But yeah, we'll keep a note of it.
I did want to touch on like the root causes of it, because things like that don't just happen. But at the same time, if he is guilty of what he's been accused of doing, get rid of him.
Exactly, 100% agree.
Get him out of the sport.
Right, let's move on to even more. Let's move into even more news. This time, kind of on a bit of a lighter note, but a bit more of a angry note for you, Arn. Everton Football Club under Moshiri. Take it away again.
At the start of the season, I was watching this team play, and I kept saying to people, they're shit. This is a shit team. It's a disaster waiting to happen. They were winning games, and I'm like, how are they winning games? I'm watching them play. I think they played Burnley earlier in the season and won 3-1, and they probably should have lost 4-0. They were dreadful. And when you're not creating chances organically, when your chance creation is basically give it to Andros Townsend and hope he can smash one in from 30 yards out, that's not something you can rely on. You can't just go, oh, we'll just get ourselves another wonder goal and that'll do it. Football doesn't work like that. Even in Serie A, when they have such strong defensive lines sometimes that you have teams taking pot shots from a distance, it's not the core. It's not like your main source of goals. And I think what Rafa Benitez intended to do when he went into Everton was to establish wide players and have like two like aggressive central midfielders in Decore and Allen, and then have like Andros Townsend and Damari Gray, and have them whipping balls into the middle and having like Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin get on the end of them. And that went wrong because Calvert-Lewin got injured, and then Richarlison got injured as well. So you've immediately just lost that. So they had to play a different way. And Rafa Benitez, the way that he did recruitment for this season, and I know he didn't have any money to spend, but he didn't recruit an alternative. So Everton had a phenomenal footballer last season, James Rodriguez. Like he's such a good footballer. He's got a great footballing brain. He sees the pitch in ways that most footballers don't. He's got that little bit of extra special vision and creativity. You can't. It's very difficult to replace that. So they took that number 10, that creative spark, and they just took it away at the team and just said, "Oh, you can go now. It's fine. You can go. We'll fix it from here." And then he's gone for an outdated 4-4-2, and it kind of worked a little bit at the start, but there was no control over the games. It was just like literally like get the ball, get it wide, whip it into the box. It was proper like outdated, outmoded tactically. It's the kind of thing that you'd have a go at Sean Dyche or someone for it, but he doesn't play like that. Sean Dyche, he actually has more depth and more versatility to the way that Burnley play. Sorry, I just saw Lucas say he has a great footballer brain. Doesn't sound like a compliment. No, it doesn't really, does it? No.
Depending on what era and what ball has consistently hit his head, then maybe we'll need to kind of see about that.
Yeah, so the tactics were outdated. Rafa, when he had this spate of injuries, decided he was going to go defensive, and instead of utilising the likes of Anthony Gordon and Dobbin and Ellis Sims and all the kids that are coming through the academy, he was like, "Nah, we'll just put more defenders out there and we'll sit." So they sat a lot and got attacked a lot and conceded a lot of goals and lost a lot of games. And the only time they ever looked any good was at Old Trafford against Man United, where they held on for a draw, and they kind of looked all right attacking their defence, which has its own problems. But for the whole season, every time I've watched Everton, they've been shit. They've never been the better team in a game, not once. And I've watched them play a dozen times this season, and every time they've been bad.
I mean, look at so obviously Rafa has now been given the sack. Duncan,
they were late on that. I said I started having a go in the DMs about a one in Rafa gone in late October, I think, because I'm like, clearly not working. The problem with the point in Rafa Benitez in the first place was you've got a manager that's always going to be divisive. So Everton Twitter this season has been a horrible, toxic environment with all of the fans just fighting each other. Some were backing Rafa, some hated him. If you just appointed somebody that wasn't Rafa Benitez, that doesn't happen. And I know that Everton fans have turned on the manager before, and they probably will do again. But the speed at which it happened and the speed at which the football on the pitch went from what they were doing under Carlo Ancelotti, which I know it kind of went a bit wrong second half of last season, but it was better than this. And the deterioration on the pitch combined with the fighting off it is just a maelstrom of awfulness. And I think Everton are lucky they're as high up the table as they are. But also, when they finally decided to get rid of him, they got rid of him after he'd had fallen out with Luca D. And a falling out that was public. So when you have a public falling out with a player, it reduces his market value. So instead of getting full value for Luca Dean, they sold him off for like 25 million to Aston Villa. Aston Villa got themselves a great left back, by the way, phenomenal in his prime. Some Everton fans were trying to tell me that his form's been bad for the last 18 months. I'm like, fucking games are you watching? That is absolute nonsense. And I know you can corrupt stats to whatever you want, but like statistically, he's been one of the better defenders in the league, not just for Everton, in the league. Creatively, he's one of the better players going forwards. He gets a lot of assists. From set pieces, he was a great set piece taker until Benitez took him off set pieces. So Luca Dean's kicking off behind the scenes saying, "Why are you taking me off set pieces, you fat twat?" And Benitez publicly disparages him and causes a further divide between the fans and the player, to the point where when he came back the week after he left, when and played for Villa, somebody threw a bottle of Lucozade at him.
Yeah, which is completely unacceptable. I think he just assisted a corner to get the goal.
Scored the goal, but
yeah,
honestly, the timing on it is so stupid. You don't fire a manager at like in the middle of a transfer window when you've already sold the player that he's fallen out with. Either you just get rid of him before the transfer window starts. And if it took that game against Norwich to prove that he was a bad manager, then you weren't watching the rest of the season because he was a bad manager from day one.
We do have some breaking news as we are talking. Reported by David Ornstein, Barcelona are nearing an agreement with Arsenal for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang on loan. Main issue to resolve is salary would be major saving for Arsenal, but no loan fee or buy option obligation. Barcelona, they've done it again.
I've got a point from Ivan again, so we'll get to that. We've got a transfer a bit later on, so we'll get to Aubameyang. But yeah, Ivan McGann, not that it was all peachy before then, but that Watford game where they considered 4 late on, the rot setting immediately. How they beat Arsenal and drew at Chelsea after. I quite agree. That Watford game, the atmosphere at Goodison just plummeted after that Watford game. It's absolutely plummeted. You got fans booing their own team, staying after the game to abuse the players, chanting "sack the board," massive Benitez out flags at the ground. It was a disgrace. The appointment was wrong from day one. He got the wrong guy, and he tried to hide it by appointing him the day of an England Euros game. I can't remember who they were playing, but they were playing that day. And like when the game was on, they announced the appointment just so that it was like, oh, nobody could really get mad about it in the moment.
I mean,
they had to do that.
Here's the thing. Ivan's going like how they beat Arsenal is a mystery. I don't think it is a mystery. Arsenal are just and we can swear thankfully on this one. Arsenal are just shit at the moment. Arsenal just have a team.
Arsenal squad over Everton squad because Arsenal they've got a manager in Arteta. He's young, he's ambitious, he's tactically aware, and he's building a team around what he wants to do. Some of the players that he's got there that he's just trying to offload, some of the older ones, it's difficult to get rid of them. They're on very high wages, so he's had to kind of incorporate them into it. But you give them a couple of seasons, they'll be top 4.
The thing is, though, with Arsenal, though, they have, they've released Kolasinac, they have released Chambers, both of them went to Marseille and Villa. Willian left. If it is true, and Pablo Mari went to Udinese, Maitland-Niles went to Roma. Reece Nelson, I think, is away at Feyenoord. The players they've brought in, they've not brought in anyone. In January, they have not signed anyone to make that team feel like it's strong. Because
I mean, he's had trouble with recruitment for sure.
And with Aubameyang now leaving, that's just gonna, the only striker they've got is a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 26-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And even then, some of them don't play full up front attack. So if I'm honest, I'd choose Everton's team over Arsenal. I think there's still
not if you had to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But like as I say, if I'm looking at it on paper, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, I'd take that. I would not take Arsenal's squad. They seem to just be going in free fall sell mode to try and afford people. And obviously, as we're going to talk about in the transfers, they, were pretty much used as bait for Juventus for the signing of the boy from Fiorentina whose name escapes me. Savage. So here's a question: Everton, since we're on here at the moment.
There's a little bit more Everton because we've got to go to the managers. We've got to talk about the problem from Mashiri over the years. So
Mashiri, so they had Marcel Brands in. Marcel Brands left at the beginning of the season.
Yes, he got drummed out by Rafa Benitez because Benitez doesn't like working with the director of football. Not that Brands was allowed to do his job anyway, because basically he would go and identify players, and then he'd bring that player in, he'd do all the prep work, and he'd get them ready, and then go, bang, there you go, there's your player. And that had worked to a degree, and he knew what he was doing. The problem was there's too much influence of agents, and Moshiri is too involved in the footballing side of the club. I mean, I don't begrudge Moshiri because, like, he's come along and he's pumped in like £500 million in transfers. He's building Everton a new stadium, a brand new dock, and I think that's the one thing that's prevented like riots on the terraces before this season, is that there was a new stadium coming. Everything seemed to be going in a logical direction, but the transfers tell the story, and the transfers are the story of they've been influenced. They're not a collective vision. They're not like a team. Like I say with Arteta, he's bringing in players that fit into his system. He's bringing in players that he wants. Whereas Everton have brought in players that super agents have available for a fee, where they get a lot of money as the agent fee.
And the thing is, some of them are good players. Some of them are genuinely good players. Like, Moise Keane is a good player. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
They had Davy Klaassen. They had,
Moise Keane was one where I feel that's something where Marcel Brands convinced him to come, but then when he was here, he didn't really fit into the way that Everton played. So that's kind of on Brands, but at the same time, it was also a big change for him. He was a young lad coming from Italy. It was a struggle for him to adapt.
So whose fault is that then? Is that Brands' fault for bringing him in, or is that Ancelotti's fault, or is it just simply a case of both Brands and Ancelotti didn't talk to each other?
No, I think it just didn't work out for the lad. Like the fans were behind him. The fans wanted him to score. The fans wanted him to do well. It just didn't work out, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's not a good fit for a player at a club. And I don't really hold anyone responsible for that one. It was just something that went wrong. It was one of the better deals that went wrong. It's like Davy Klaassen you mentioned. Davy Klaassen's a really good footballer, but he just didn't work at Everton. These things happen, and part of the scouting process is finding out what the player is like, not just how good he is. Because anyone can see how good a player is. You can watch it on TV and go like, "Oh, that lad can play a bit. Let's sign him." But then when you bring him in, you suddenly discover that he doesn't like, Scousers, and it doesn't work. You have to make sure that you know the player as well, and that's what Marcel Brands was quite good at. That he'd go and invest time into spending time with the player and with the family, and finding out what he's like and whether he's a good fit. And obviously, it just didn't work out with Moise Keane. But then you look at the players that in my opinion, there is too much influence in this situation with agents, with agents pushing their own players into the move. And in particular, there was absolutely no need to spend £35 million on Alex Iwobi. Absolutely no need for it. Didn't need him at the time. Certainly didn't need to spend that much money on a player in that position. And we ended up with basically a guy he's played in a couple of different positions, hasn't done particularly well in any of them, and most of the time he's been a sub for £35 million. And we're not the kind of team that has the kind of money that coming in that we can afford to do that. If Man City buy a player for 50 million and just use him as a bench warmer, I don't think anybody bats an eyelid because their income is so big. But Everton, well, they're not in Europe. They're not finishing high up. They're not winning trophies. They can't afford to waste money on a player that's not going to improve the team. But then you look, I mean, I have put it, so we've got our little notes thing. We've got our little spreadsheet.
Yep, we do.
I've put in that we had two really good windows since Farhad Moshiri took over at Everton. There was the window where they brought in Richarlison, Yerry Mina, and Luka Dean, which when that transfer window happened, I was like, oh, we're cooking now. You brought in three players, all of them instant first team stars, like probably your best 3 players, and you brought them all in the same window, and you've really upgraded the team, and it looked like we were going to kick on at that point. And
Yeah.
then every window after that was just like, well, what are they doing? And there didn't seem to be any kind of singularity of vision. So you end up with Yannick Bolasie and Ademola Lookman and Morgan Schneiderlin and Ashley Williams, Theo Walcott, Kenk Tosin, and the list goes on. It's just it's been like that. There's more. I could carry on, but
all the stars, all
oh,
the stars.
it's been a disaster. There's been no singularity of vision. There's been no like we signing this player because we need him. It's bringing in players because they're available and because the agent calls Farhad Mashiri and goes, "Oh, you can have Fabian Delph, big star player." And Mashiri's gone, "Oh, okay, we'll take him," and they pay money for him, and then he turns up at training, and the manager's like, "Who the fuck are you? Well, we don't need you. Go and train with the kids or something. Just go away." And this has happened the whole time. Like Kenk Tosin is a great example, I think. Kenk Tosin was supposed to be like, they were going to bring him in. He was going to be the star striker. They spent, I think, £27 million on him. And in he comes, Kenk Tosin, and he's done bugger all. And now he won't even leave the club. We can't even get rid of him because clubs come in and go, like, "Oh, he's Kenk Tosin available." We're like, yes, he is. Please take him. And then he goes into a meeting and goes like, I don't really want to move because they're paying me a lot of money. And the other clubs don't want to pay him that kind of money. So he just kind of sits around at Finch Farm every day. You're probably smoking 20 Bensons in every training session because like, what else is he going to do? And I thought it was just a complete waste of money. And
Henry, I'm just looking at names as well. Like I've got one here, which I don't think is his own fault because obviously he was injured almost. He had a knee ligament injury, but Henry Onyekuru for $7 million didn't make a single appearance while at Everton. Went on loan twice and then went to Monaco. Now his career hasn't picked up since then, but it's just like it's that's one that kind of I don't think worked out on both sides, but
yeah, I mean there's players who've been unlucky. I mean, Gabamin is the obvious one. Came in, got injured immediately, has been out for 2 years, and he's just barely coming back in this season. He doesn't look happy to be playing football because he's every time he kicks the ball, you think his legs are going to fall apart. That's unfortunate. So there have been unfortunate cases like Gabamin, like Moise Keane that just haven't really worked out. Davy Clarkson. But the fact that there's so many failed transfers, somebody's got to put their hand up there and go, yeah, we've cocked it up. Keep getting it wrong. And because we keep getting it wrong, I mean, the good thing about Carlo Ancelotti is he had enough spine to stand up to Mashiri and say, no, we don't want this. Don't give me another Alex Iwobi. Just what we need is a better midfield. So that's going into last season. He was like, we need a better midfield. We need a creative spark. We need somebody who's going to run for 90 minutes. We need somebody who's going to clean up behind them. And in comes James Rodriguez, got Decore and Allen as a midfield three. When we made those signings in the space of a week, I was like, you just completely changed the entire outlook of the season, completely changed the setup, the tactical approach to the games, because all of a sudden you had a midfield. Everton haven't had a good midfield in a long time. And that was an absolutely radical transfer window, like the one with Richarlison, Mina, and Dean. And it's like, those are the transfer windows that a big top flight club needs to have consistently. And there's been too many where it's like they've just brought in players that just aren't going to work and just don't fit in. And you need to sign players that are going to be first team players that start at this level. If you've got that much money, that's what you need to do.
Yeah. And if we move, so I think obviously about 500 million being spent, just over.
2016, when he took over, it's 500 million pounds, half $500 million spent on players.
So Rafa gone.
Yep. Bye.
Then you had your options. You could give it to Big Dunk again at the end of the season, then go for someone else. You could had Vitor Pereira. Wayne Rooney turned down the job.
Do you know that Everton have approached Vitor Pereira 4 times now? In 4 separate occasions, Everton have approached Vitor Pereira about the manager's job, and still haven't given him a job. So why do they keep approaching him?
I mean, there's that funny video of him at Fenerbahce where the fan behind him keeps shouting 4-4-2.
4-4-2! Pereira! 4-4-2!
And he didn't seem like he had a good time at his career is very baffling, like going from like Porto, where he won the league title twice, then he went all the way over to Saudi Arabia, of course, then he goes to Greece for Olympiacos, Turkey for Fenerbahce.
He's a very
1860
stubborn man.
yeah,
He's a stubborn
1860
man.
Munich, Shanghai, and then back to Fenerbahce.
Yeah, so he tends to get into disagreements with players, fans, and probably the owners, which is why he can't hold down a job for longer than about 2 years. I don't think that would have worked at Everton, because the first thing he was going to do was probably fall out with the fans, because Mike's pointed out 1860 Munich are the 4th best team in Munich.
There we go. He ended his time at 1860 Munich, 20 games, 6 wins, 3 draws, 11 losses, 30% win rating. There you go.
And he got relegated. So
yeah. So there we go.
So yeah, I was not particularly thrilled about Vitor Pereira. I took him last summer. If the choice was Benitez or Vitor Pereira, I'd have been like, I will definitely take Pereira. He has a lot of the same flaws as Rafa Benitez, but he didn't used to manage Liverpool. So that would have been a selling point for me, is that I would have took him. Now, probably not. I'm not slagging him off or anything. He's not a disastrously bad manager, but he has the same kind of stubbornness that Benitez has. And I think you need a manager to come in who the fans actually want from the start.
It seems like he had a great time at Porto when he went to Saudi Arabia for Al Ahly, Olympiacos, and then obviously in the Chinese league for Shanghai. I just think his time at Fenerbahce, the second time around, and obviously the time at 1860 Munich, it is very kind of a you don't know what you're gonna get with him. But he's not going to be your manager,
No.
of course, because old Frankie is turned up, shouted "fuck Klopp" and got the job.
Yeah, that's what got him the job. The great thing about following a lot of Evertonians on Twitter is I've got my finger on the Everton pulse, and almost overnight it went from them just saying like, oh well, we could be this guy, it could be this guy, and there were loads of names being thrown out. It went overnight from that to we want Lampard, just overnight. And it happened to coincide with that video coming out again of him telling Jurgen Klopp to fuck off during a game in lockdown, when you can clearly hear them arguing on the sidelines, and that's an easy sell for an Everton fan. But also, it's not just that; it's the fact that he had a good record at Derby. I think he did all right at Chelsea, to be honest with you. I thought he did all right because they had no money to spend when he was there.
Yeah,
because they had the transfer ban. He brought along a load of young players, which is another plus point for him, because Everton have not been giving their young players the opportunities. So, that's another plus. And he also would probably still be at Chelsea if he hadn't had Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal. He went through that run of dreadful form, and there was no alternative. So, he was just there giving goals away and costing them points. Without that happening, I think he'd stay there. He probably wouldn't have won the Champions League, but he probably would have stayed there.
Yeah, he left Chelsea with a 52.4% win
he wasn't
ratio.
bad. I think people saying he was bad at Chelsea weren't really watching, to be honest with you.
I think the season kind of ended when he kind of was I think he disagreed with obviously their transfer policy at certain points. And from again, there was rumblings that he wasn't getting on with the directors. He also kind of had to have kind of Petr Cech kind of come in as an intermediary to serve for stuff. So, he's in there now. Will he be? Is he going to be given it? The thing is,
It was
he
an
needs enough time.
unconvincing win over Luton Town that sealed his fate.
Is he going to be given enough time? Most likely. He's already got signings. He's got signings that he's already now got to deal with that aren't his own.
Yeah. When you go into a transfer window, especially a January transfer window, and you make two signings based on the previous manager and get rid of a player based on the previous manager and then sack the previous manager, what are you doing? And it's a lack of planning that really is annoying. I mean, you look at even Watford, and Watford is a fucking mess. Watford got rid of Ranieri, and the next day they appointed Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, that's because he's already worked with the Pozzo.
They've got him lined up.
Family.
So in he comes. Whereas Everton sacked Rafa Benitez, you can't tell me they weren't that they're expecting Rafa Benitez to last the entire season. Surely not. So, he is clearly going to get sacked at some point. It just happened to be January, and all of a sudden, it's like they don't know who the next manager is. They haven't got a clue. You got nobody lined up. You hadn't thought this through. Surely if I'm going to lose someone at work, in my head, I already know who I want to take on those job roles, and I work in a supermarket.
Yeah, you're bringing in a replacement really quickly as soon as you know what's happening.
Because it's a business, and businesses run day to day, and you need somebody lined up to replace the person that's going away. For Everton to not have any idea who they wanted as manager, and it looks like there was internal strife with some of the board wanted Rooney, some of the board were keen on Lampard, and Kia Jarabshian wanted Pereira. Probably, I don't know. So an agent wants Pereira to come in because he gets a cut of it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he's the favourite. And that is the problem. There's not one singular voice. There's no director of football now. They haven't got a manager. And you got Mashiri pulling the strings when I don't even know what he knows about football, which doesn't seem to be very much.
Yep. If you're Frank Lampard, you're going in with, in the summer, hopefully getting in that director of football and hopefully being able to kind of set the landscape for what you want to be. Ivan McGann with a good point there. Yes, at least he isn't doing NFTs and very questionable NFTs like John Terry. And Uncle Gabe being into the NFTs is just shocking.
That William NFT, I'm sorry, that was just racist. I don't care what you say. It was just racist.
Yeah, it was. Although apparently all the NFTs are apes, apparently. So yeah, not accepting it whatsoever.
Some weird. What's it called? Ape.
It's something.
Boys or something. It's just it's terrible.
It's and the fact that his Twitter profile is a picture of one of these monkeys is with him as a monkey is just
let me just I got it. Let me just pop it in the thing. So that's the John Terry one. So that's the basic for it.
We have an Evertonian in the chat. Oh my god.
Blue Cali, hi. So Blue Cali, what do you think about Frank Lampard?
The thing is, you spent while we're waiting for a response from the Evertonian. If we get, so you spent the 500 million, you've now just announced you're most likely getting Donny van de Beek on loan. So the two new signings, you've got Nathan Patterson and Michaelenko. And El Ghazi,
El Ghazi. Honestly, I don't really understand that. I don't really understand that at all. So I get the feeling it was just supposed to be part of the deal, So
Hi, Liam.
when they went for Luca Dean, I think it was just a case of, should we throw this in as part of it? And if you just didn't want to move permanently.
Maybe they just offered him a mystery box. Said, "Okay, we really want Luca Dini. We'll give you this money, but we'll also give you what's inside this mystery box." And inside the mystery box was a picture of El Ghazi.
Okay, from Hampshire. Happy to see what Frank can do. Been wanting a younger, hungrier manager for a while now. Yeah, same. Big name in the game to attract players too. Well, it certainly worked for Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa. And Aston Villa are a similar size club. They have the similar kind of financial clout. And their transfer window has been significantly better than Everton's in this January window.
I mean, I'm kind of the only one I'm baffled by the Aston Villa transfer window is Callum Chambers, but bringing in Coutinho is clearly a difference maker.
Yeah, Luca Dean's a really good signing, and they've been rumoured for others as well. So that
taking heavy advantage of Barcelona's financial situation, which, to be fair, as you may not know, Blue Cali, on this podcast, we have a clear Barcelona. We hope they liquidate very soon, but they won't. And we'll go into it a bit more in the transfers.
With Barcelona, that Eddie's got a narrative going on it.
I hate them so much.
I would rather Real Madrid went out of business, but it's just me.
If both of them could go, that would be great. I'd even take that. So I say Everton currently in the league are in. Well, obviously they're in the Premiership. They are currently situated 10th out of 20. Or 10th out of 20. Sorry, that's last season. 16th.
Yeah,
clearly wrong. I'm going to ask Blue Cali as well, and he'll maybe respond. Arn, where do you think they're going to finish?
I don't like this. I don't like this game. The my problem with the Premier League table at the moment is that I was always quite happy as it was going on, because there were three teams that were worse.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always worse. I'm just trying to get the table up here so you can actually see see what's going on. There it is. So I was looking at the table from day one. I was like, well, Norwich are worse than us. Newcastle are worse than us. Watford are worse than us. Burnley are worse than us. We should be okay. But increasingly, you start looking at the numbers there. Everton's got 19 points. That's only 3 more than Norwich. I know Norwich have played 2 more, but that's starting to concern me. Newcastle are going to have good form, I think, between now and the end of the season. So I don't think they're going to finish in the bottom 3. Watford have just changed their manager again. I don't think Burnley are going to struggle like this all season. Well, they've done a cheeky bit of business with Newcastle.
And we'll talk about in the transfer section once we've gone over the Watford bit. There's been a lot of signings and there's lots still coming in at the moment. About that, if FFP doesn't apply to big name glamour clubs, it's to ring fence them as the big clubs and not let anyone else get in. That's why Barca and Real get away with their debt.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I really don't know where Everton finish. Need to see a couple of games out of Frank, see what players we bring in the next 24 hours. Well, you've got Donny van de Beek coming in.
I mean, people forgetting that Donny was a really good footballer until Man United got their hands on him.
Until Ollie was basically giving him and told, "This is your toy now," and then he was like, "Well, I'm not really going to do much with him." But yeah, next thing.
We'll get to Barcelona in a bit.
We love a bit of Barcelona chat on this. So we move on quickly to Watford. Have again, the Pozzo family have decided, let's pick another manager from our past to hire, and brought Roy Hodgson out, 74 years old and managing still in the Premier League.
Well, no, that Donny could have walked into any team in the world 2 years ago, and I think that is true.
Yes, very true. 74-year-old Roy Hodgson back in again. For Watford. Watford are kind of, I don't know. It's going to be difficult. I'm very.
This is the recent history with managers. If you go back to when they Pozzo took over,
The Pozzos took over
It was
in
2012, I want to say.
they took over in 2012, yep.
Yeah.
Because then they brought in, they sacked Sean Dyche and they
Yeah.
brought in
Well, that was their first one.
Gianfranco Zola.
Yeah.
There we go, Zola.
But if you look at this is the games played column. Watford needs more Elton John and more cocaine. Okay. Yeah, it is Roy. It is Roy's final payday. I hope he rinses them for every penny. So you look at the games played, if you can see that on there.
Yep.
A bit bigger.
No, I can see it.
There we go. So the games played, you got Zola, got 75. And if you go down, Javi Gracia, who actually got them to a cup final, had 66, and that's the only other one that had over 50 games. All the rest of them quick in and out.
Well, Billy Mackay, but Billy McKinley's clearly in his caretaker.
Yeah, it's.
But look at the names. Like, look at the certain names. You've got Marco Silva,
also Materazzi in there. Marco Silva,
Kike Sanchez Flores in twice. the Nigel Pearson era.
Yeah, and then Ivic had a 41% win ratio and still got fired. Cisco, and I told you Cisco would get fired before anyone else.
Yep, I'm still hoping. I mean, Patrick Vieira's done a wonderful job with Crystal
Palace. They got rid of Ranieri as well.
Yep, got rid of the Tinkerman and then brought in Hodgson.
It's bizarre. So yeah, Zola's the first of the bizarre manager circus.
They're due relegation again.
Anyway. They have a worse managerial record than Everton in the last 6 years, which is true.
Yeah. I don't see any way back for Watford.
I mean, Mike, aka Cerberus Forsyth, taking absolutely no pleasure in this. He is, of course, a Luton Town fan who have that historic rivalry with Watford. So he's not very upset about it.
I think we put them both in. I think we both put them in our relegation candidates. So I mean, it's destined to happen.
Yeah, we did. So I predicted Watford, Burnley, and Newcastle would go down, which is actually the bottom three at the moment. So I feel quite happy about it. And you went for Watford, Palace, and Southampton, which not sure about that.
I didn't expect Patrick Vieira to do that well.
Well, what about Big Ralph Hasenhuttl? I think you bet against him there. I think that's probably.
I just don't. I don't. Well, I mean, if I look at where they are, right, they are still technically all the clubs we have. The clubs I chose are still in the bottom 10, so they still have a chance of getting put down.
10, they're 12th. They're not going down. Mike is outraged.
I said what I said. Decisions were made.
The predictions weren't very good.
Were they well, yeah, to be fair, we both went for Real to win La Liga. We both went for PSG to win Ligue 1. We have majorly buggered up Serie A.
We don't talk about Serie A.
And then
the point we were trying to make when we went for Atalanta and Roma was that the league was very open and that potentially a number of teams could win it. I'm saying.
And for the Bundesliga, you went Bayern and I went Borussia. So
yeah,
that looks like it's going to be you winning that one. But yeah, I think Watford still going to get relegated, and again, this cycle will consistently go on.
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances of Roy Hodgson being fired before the season's over?
I think he'd get if they officially get relegated, a couple of games left, they will.
I can see him just walking up, going, "Cheers, lads! Thanks for the cash.
Bye bye."
Take their money. They're idiots. Take them.
I just think it will genuinely be that kind of situation. He will, as I say, if the relegation is officially announced with a couple of games left to go, they'll sack him, put in a caretaker, and then they'll see on who they can get next time.
And then them when they get promoted.
Yep. Or they'll keep them, and then when they won't do well, because they'll
life, Eddie.
Yeah, because they'll keep the same. They'll keep the same squad without very much changes.
That whole presenting the the baby from the Lion King and just have like Roy Hodgson
Just prepared for when he gets
his
sacked.
face on the guy.
Yeah. Anyway, that's enough football for now. Well, football as in Premier League stuff. Well, we're going to talk about transfers.
Yeah.
We've talked pretty much about. I mean, the Rafa signings from Everton. We've talked about them. We've talked about Elukadine. We've Callum Chambers being signed by Villa. Villa have had quite a good window. Let's talk about Saudi blood money. Alleged Saudi blood money Newcastle.
The more I think about it, because you were laughing at it at the time, and I was like, well, Chris Wood. I felt like they were playing Moneyball, so they've looked at the stats, they've looked at the numbers, and they've gone like, this is a guy who's going to score X number of goals, has X amount of goal creation in his locker, and they've took those goals and put them into the team. Just gone, these are now our goals. Burnley now have no goals.
Yep.
And I saw a couple of people say that they'd weakened Burnley. And then Burnley have just, is it 15 million for Weghorst?
Yeah, 15 million
for player in for 10 million less.
Yeah.
Would love Newcastle to go down. Absolutely. That would be
solidarity. Get them down.
I think all the other clubs in the division would be quite happy for Newcastle to just fall flat on their face this season and go down.
I mean, when was the last time they won a game?
Now you're asking. Well, they've only won 2 games this season.
Mm-hmm.
They won last week, didn't they? John Joe Shelby scored.
Oh yeah, against Leeds.
Was it Leeds? Yeah, Leeds beat Leeds 1-0. But yeah, that's their second win of the season, and they're still only 4 points behind Everton.
Yep,
that's scary.
So if you have a look at it, so they've signed. So if we look at the window and who they've brought in since they've become rich, Trippier for 12 million.
Sunderland
Chris Wood for 25 million. The rumours obviously of signing Bruno. For I think, has there been an announcement of how much he's been gone for? About
Guimaraes?
Yeah.
I think it's 40 million. How much money did they spend? Like 200 million, wasn't it?
So yeah, they get 200 million. They've so far spent only 37 of that. And there were fans complaining that they had been outpriced for Diego Carlos, and also the player was playing a little bit of taking his time. So
if I was a player, I would be reticent about going to Newcastle as well, because they're second bottom. Have only won 2 games all season. You're going to go in for a relegation battle. Kieran Trippier, I don't know what he's thinking, leaving Atletico Madrid, who are going to qualify for the Champions League next year, to go to Newcastle, who are definitely not going to qualify for the Champions League next year. It feels like he's thrown away a couple of years of his career in an attempt to turn Newcastle into a comeback team, and hope that he can ride the coattails of that and be like a local hero.
The thing is,
won't be a local hero if they get relegated and he leaves.
He'd made 18 appearances. They had just won La Liga last year. They are 4th currently in La Liga. It is just.
I mean, they're not having a good season, Atletico, but it's not a difficult league to get into the top 4 in if you've got the level of investment that Atletico have got, that Real Madrid have got. Even Barcelona should get into that top 4.
So, as I say, they've signed, currently in the process of agreeing a deal with Bruno Guimaraes. The Diego Carlos deal is off, which is to the surprise of nobody. Apparently, the deal for Bruno is either 33 million or 40 million, one of those numbers. So yeah, we've got those signing. Newcastle, I think we both just desperately wanted to go down. Luis Diaz has just signed.
I don't think Newcastle will go down.
I want them to so bad.
I want them to. I just don't think they will. I think they will rate their chances at finishing above Norwich, Burnley, and Watford.
I would like it if Burnley and both Newcastle went down. I think that would be great because I don't like Sean Dyche, but his style of football is just horrifying.
Apparently, we might get late window bids from Newcastle and Arsenal for Calvert-Lewin.
Well, you probably will from Arsenal, given the fact that, as I broke the news while we were on here,
Yeah, Aubameyang has gone.
Aubameyang is away on loan to Barca, so that wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, there is a very definite concern that Calvert-Lewin might go, especially with Arsenal being interested because I believe he's an Arsenal fan. Calvert-Lewin
might be.
So he probably could have his head turned there. He's been an absolute hero for Everton over the past couple of years, but with his injuries, maybe you can cash in. Yeah.
It depends on where we're going to lead him in terms of that.
Ivan's pointing out that the number of games left for Burnley to play will kill them with their limited squad. That's probably true because they have a very sort of scrappy pressing style of football.
Blue Cali, yeah, I'm pretty sure Vlahovic used and his agent used Arsenal to try and get UV.
Yeah,
because there was so many numbers being thrown about with Vlahovic and Arsenal that it was just kind of a case of you knew he was like stretching this out, waiting for that UV are calling. Okay, Arsenal get thrown to the side and he runs straight to Juventus. There's I think also Spurs are having a bit of a window because they were trying to get Adama Traore and then he decided to go and reunite with his Middlesbrough.
So they went for Adama Traore, who I pointed this out before he's a 100-meter runner and he's not a footballer. And instead of getting him, they've got Kulusevski from Juventus. Kulusevski's a fantastic player. He's miles better than Traore.
They've not only done that,
I think they fluked into that, but fair play to them. They've got themselves a really good player there.
They've also announced, I think rumours are they are getting Betancourt as well.
Yes. Well, they've made the offer. I don't know if it's been accepted. They had an offer rejected yesterday, I think. With it being deadline day tomorrow, there's probably going to be another offer in there for him. But that's another great pickup. Tottenham have been a laughing stock for a while. I don't think they're going to be under Conte because Conte does not take any shit. So he's going to make sure that he gets players in that are good enough. So the Tottenham's random recruitment of recent years may be coming to an end.
Ndombele going to Lyon on loan.
Ndombele's not worked out at all. He just hasn't. It was rumoured he was going to go to Everton. I was like, oh no.
I remember that.
Going right for English players, Grealish 100 million, Sancho 73. I'd take a penny less than 70 million. I think Everton should get as much money as they possibly can so they can actually use that money to reinvest. So how much is he going to play for the rest of the season? Would 70 million allow Frank to go nuts on deadline day and bring in 4 players? Probably.
Maybe.
Let's see what happens, I guess.
We've also
Sancho for 73 million. I think United got took to the cleaners by Dortmund on that one.
Yeah. You've also got the rumblings of Juventus are signing Dennis Zakaria from
Zakaria,
I think Gladbach. Is he it?
He plays in Germany somewhere. There's German people in the chat. I'm sure one of them will just.
I think he plays for Gladbach. So if Domi was here, he'd probably tell us everything we need to know about him. Brian Gill is leaving Tottenham and going to Valencia.
Yeah, when I was talking about random, just there's confirmation. Yeah, he plays for Gladbach. When I was talking about Tottenham's random recruitment, signing Brian Gill, or Gill, I don't really know how it's pronounced, but signing him just felt very random because he is a good footballer, but was he ever going to just drop into a Premier League team that didn't really Damon Hill.
Damon Hill.
He was never really just going to drop into a Premier League team. like Spurs that had like a very regimented way of playing that he just didn't seem to fit into. So I don't know if the idea was they were going to change their formation or change the way that they played or use him as a player to change games, but they paid too much money for him and he didn't really fit in. So that's the end of that.
Yeah. We've also got any other rumblings that are coming up at the moment in time of transfers. We obviously got Luis Diaz. Is that the name? Yes, Luis Diaz signing for Liverpool for 37.5 million. Bringing in who else? Oh yeah, Tony Martial leaving Manchester United, going on loan to Sevilla.
I think that's long overdue. He hasn't been good for them for a long time. I'm just surprised they haven't offloaded him properly. I don't know if the idea is that because Rangnick is only there to the end of the season, I don't know if the idea is they want to loan players out so they get them out of the way so they're not complaining about not playing, but at the same time, whoever the new manager is when they come in the summer, because he's not staying, is he, Ralph? He's
No.
doing until the end of the season and that's it.
Well, he's moving up, so he's going from
he's going somewhere
manager to advisor, director.
So the idea is that whoever comes in, they basically just get to look at what the players are and decide if they want to keep them or not. So if a manager comes in and he's like, "Oh, I'd love to have Martial and Van der Beek in the team," then he can still do that.
Yep. Blue Cali says DCL seems to suffer with injuries. These quad muscle injuries can hang around a while. Would like us to get the Canadian Jonathan David to replace DCL. Not sure how much he would cost. If we go by transfer market, his current value is 45 million for Jonathan David.
What's Calvert-Lewin's value on there?
I don't know. So Blue Cali, my team I'm Scottish, so my team is Dundee United. English team, I don't really have a preference as much.
Calvert-Lewin rated as 40 million on Transfermarkt.
Yeah.
So
I have heard
there is definitely a Premier League tax on top of that, though.
I've heard massive rumblings that we are going to get Ousmane Dembele finally in the Premier League. I think Ivan might be referring to the one at Lyon, Moussa Dembele. I could be completely wrong.
Ousmane is available. They've said they want to get rid of him, Barca.
Made of very, very thin glass.
So Martial's gone, and Amad Diallo's gone out on loan. So all of a sudden, there's a problem at Man United where there wasn't one like a week ago. Because instead of losing two players that were a little bit periphery, they've lost two players. And what we talked about at the top of the show.
There we go, the Barca reject. If Ousmane Dembele ends up signing for Man United, it's an absolute piss take. That's my complete opinion. The boy's made of thin glass.
But he can be a really great player. Mike's pointed out that DCL has the Premier League and the English player tax. I think 40 million, he'll probably go for more than that, especially given the time frame. So if Arsenal were desperate for a striker and they come in tomorrow, I think they have to go at least 50, but probably higher.
Well, yeah. And we will keep an eye on it. We'll probably do another. The deadline is when? The 31st?
It's tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's deadline day.
We may do another one tomorrow if we're both available. We'll do one. He's in the pub, so we'll do one at some point. If I come back
from the pub and I'm not steaming, we could possibly do a deadline day roundup tomorrow night.
We'll do a deadline day roundup where we'll have a lot more talk about it, because if he's really drunk, I'm sure it'll depend on how Everton have done in the window. Other than that, the last thing we were going to talk about was the NFL and the playoffs.
Oh, yes.
So currently today, you have the Cincinnati Bengals against the Kansas City Chiefs, and you have the Los Angeles Rams against the San Francisco 49ers in the Battle of California.
I was on the same wavelength with that one.
Yeah. I'm gonna say my opinion is we're gonna get the Kansas City Chiefs against the LA Rams.
I'm convinced the Chiefs are beating the Bengals. The Bengals have been fun to watch, sort of coming into the championship game here, but the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes is ridiculous. He's absolutely ridiculous. You watch when he's playing, and the way he sees problems coming. He's like, okay, I'm just going to scramble at the pocket here, and there you go, 50 yards completion.
Dundee United. Don't sound full-bred Scottish. Dundee United. We both support Dundee United. Me and Arn went to a game against Ross County.
Yeah, it's great. Except Eddie was very like.
Oh, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Did not want to watch my team.
Great day. Paradise.
I think Borough also. I think if you look at the Bengals, they did not have a good game against the Titans. It was very much, because Joe Burrow got, sacked 9 times in that game.
Yeah, they won in spite of that, but that's
yeah. But Burrow throwing for 348 yards, and then having 1 interception, and then winning the game 19-16. It was, the games building up to this in the NFL postseason have been quite exciting.
All of them, literally
all of them have
a dramatic field goals, or in the case of Bills and the Chiefs game, there literally was like Chiefs had won it, then Bills had won it, and then the Chiefs kicked a field goal like right at the end, like 4 seconds left to take it to overtime, and then they won in overtime. But that was a hell of a game.
The only way you are beating Pat Mahomes is if you give him 5 seconds on the clock, even maybe 2 seconds on the clock.
Apologizing for his shirt on yesterday.
Did he wear it?
It was green and white hoops.
Oh, okay. I'm not bothered, but I mean, I'm a bit upset after we lost them 1-0 in the 90th minute, Celtic. But
so, Blue Kelly, going to do a Football Manager career save. I did a Dundee United save on FM21. See if you can beat this. In 5 years, I won 3 titles and made it to the. I can't remember what was it. The semi-finals of the Europa League or the quarterfinals?
One of them.
One of them did really well though. So there's where the bar's at. If you want to have a go at that.
That's the bar. So if we have a look now, so the NFL playoffs. So with rumblings, obviously now what's currently happening is Tom Brady may or not be retiring.
Yeah, he's I think he's retired.
Ben Roethlisberger has definitely retired.
Good riddance by
good riddance. Yep. We now go to so I think Chiefs Rams. Arn, what do you think?
I'd kind of like to see a rematch of the Chiefs and 49ers from a couple of years ago. So I'm going to go with that. I don't think the Bengals have got any chance of winning, to be honest with you. I think 49ers and Rams is a lot closer than the other game. So I'll go with the 49ers. They've been on the road like the whole of the playoffs, and they've just silenced teams all the way through. So I'm backing them to go all the way.
They really have. I think Kansas will have an advantage being at home. But we just need to wait and see. Whereas with the 49ers and the Rams, like it's in California, so like both sets of fans can easily go to it if they are from California. The Chiefs and the Bengals is the first game, and then the 49ers and the Rams are the final game, and then we head to the Super Bowl. Blue Cali saying well done for your achievement in Football Manager.
Thumbs up.
But yeah, that is really us. Thank you for joining in if you've never seen us before or you have.
Yeah, it's been a lovely little chat this afternoon.
We try to
thank you.
Thanks, Blue Cali. We appreciate it. I say if you haven't done so already, be like Blue Cali, like and subscribe. We try again. Our schedule is kind of very mixed off, but we will try and get a pattern back. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please take care, stay safe, and we'll speak to you next time. Bye bye.